right, folks. Today's episode brought to you by one of my favorite sponsors. That's right. SunsetLakeSebede.com. Use the coupon code LeftIsBest. You'll get 20% off. 20% off at SunsetLakeSebede.com. What do they have there? They have tinctures in 3 or 4 different concentrations and 3 or 4 different flavors. They have it with melatonin. These tinctures are great to help you relax, help you to go to sleep, just to chill out. They also have smokables that you can mix in with other smokables or just smoke on their own. A pre-roll Sebede, maybe after dinner, is a nice digestif, of course, if you're old enough. They also have a salve, a couple of different salves with arnica and one with lidocaine. That's great for your muscles. For me, it's actually very good for my eczema. It's a little off-label use, but that's what I found it's really helpful for. They also have great Sebede-infused coffee, Sebede-infused fudge. They, of course, have Sebede gummies. All of their products are made without, or I should say grown without pesticides. They use integrated pest management. They use regenerative farming practices, so they take care of the land. Their products are third-party tested, and you can see exactly what's in there, all the different what elements or I don't know even know what the word is, but there's all different types, so you'd be surprised. There's different types of like Sebede 2 and Sebede 3 or whatever it is. But check it out. It's actually really fascinating. Also, they have great business practices, $20 minimum wage, mostly employee owned. And as you know, they are movement partners. They have donated thousands of dollars to things like strike relief funds, refugee resettlement, carceral reform, the Vermont flood, food pantries. They've given thousands to give directly. They're just a great company all around in every way. SunsetLakeSebede.com, one of our oldest sponsors now, continuous. SunsetLakeSebede.com. Use the code LeftIsBest. You will get 20% off. Check it out. And now, check out the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day is Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, October 27, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ryan Grimm, Washington Bureau Chief of the Intercept, host or co-host of, what is it, Counterpoints?
Yep.
And author of the upcoming The Squad, AOC in the Hope of a Political Revolution. Also on the program today, U.S. launches airstrikes on Iranian-backed forces in Syria. Israel brings out some tank raids in Gaza, their second incursion into Gaza. Meanwhile, the Gaza Health Ministry releases a list of over 6,500 killed by Israeli bombing. UAW wins a historic tentative agreement with Ford. Maine gunman still on the loose. Jared Golden apologizes for voting against an assault weapon ban. New Speaker of the House Johnson signals he's all in on the Biden impeachment, and also that God put him in this position. Speaking of which, Dean Phillips is all in his run against Biden. Who's Dean Phillips? We'll tell you once and then forget about it. National Labor Relations Board finalizes the joint employer rule. This is a big boon to worker power. New York Republicans offer a motion to expel George Santos, and Georgia voting maps struck down as a Section 2 violation of the Voting Rights Act. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Emma is off today. I am back from my jury duty. Will you just pop up what you're sending me back a little bit, Matt? I didn't even serve. I just sat there. But I don't know. I don't think I'll have to do that again for 6 years. I always have a mixed emotions about sitting on a jury. Oh, hold on. I want to do it, but I also don't feel good about missing work. So, all right. Well, let's get into this. The main shooter is still at large. And it is, we have really no further details on this. The guy had there's information out that, he is sort of like a survivalist mentality, at least. I think that's fair to say. And Maine is a big state. There is a lot of wilderness, and it gets back in, once you get off the coast in Maine, things can get a little bit country. And I suspect he's out there and he's got some type of holdup that he's been preparing for a long time. It certainly feels that way. But Maine Representative Jared Golden spoke at a news conference after the shooting in Lewiston. This is from yesterday. And he is one of, I think it was 5 Democrats that voted against the assault weapon ban, or any assault weapon bans that have been attempted to be passed in Congress. And well, he's had a bit of a change of heart.
Now we could be in full control, among many other misjudgments. I have opposed efforts to ban deadly weapons of war like the assault rifle used to carry out this crime. The time has now come for me to take responsibility for this failure, which is why I now call on the United States Congress to ban assault rifles like the one used by the sick perpetrator of this mass killing in my hometown of Lewiston, Maine. For the good of my community, I will work with any colleague to get this done in the time that I have left in Congress. To the people of Lewiston, my constituents throughout the 2nd District, to the families who lost loved ones, and to those who have been harmed, I ask for forgiveness and support as I seek to put an end to these terrible shootings. In the days to come, I will give everything I have to support this community's recovery. Thank you.
So, I mean, he joined, I guess it was Cuellar of Texas, Vicente Gonzalez of Texas, Ron Kind of Wisconsin, and Kurt Schrader of Oregon. Now, Kind and Schrader aren't in Congress anymore. These type of bills don't come up during a Republican Congress. On one hand, it is good to see a politician come up and apologize for this, but the idea that it has to take a mass shooting in your hometown is it's warped. I mean, the idea that we all walk through our society thinking it's not going to happen to us, right? I mean, I think that's what he said too in part of his statement. Was like,
right.
I thought we were above this. We're so below this as a society that we can't even pass a law that says a weapon that is more or less a weapon that you use in combat If you've got a wild boar problem on your property or something, okay, maybe you get a special permit. But there's absolutely no reason for these weapons to exist, or at least to be so readily available. And the idea that it takes something like this to change someone's mind is horrific. I mean, how many do we need to have? One in each different district across the country?
Let's get Nate Silver on which is the most opportune districts to have one of these if we want movement.
It really is just it's bizarre that we don't have the capacity as human beings to sort of anticipate the potential for this, and that if it happened in a different town, if it happened in Uvalde, then I'm not so worried about it. But if it happens in Lewiston, then I realize it's a problem. This failure of empathy could be the theme for the past couple of weeks too, seems to me. All right, we're going to be talking to Ryan Grimm in a few moments about the horror show that is ongoing in Gaza, and the horror show that is just getting off the ground in the U.S. Capitol with this new Theocrat as the Speaker of the House. Got a couple of sponsors today. This one's a good one. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but and I wish that something like this existed when I don't know why. It's obviously like when you get married or when you have kids is when you start to really think about these things. But and that's basically wills and trusts. And the tricky part is that traditional estate planning, you go see a lawyer, can cost you thousands of dollars. One size fits all templates, however, may not capture all the details, the important details of the life that you've built. With trust and will, you can protect your legacy from the comfort of your home, starting at just $159. I can tell you that, like, the sense of intimidation and not knowing what you're supposed to do and all this kept me from going to see a lawyer. If something like this existed, whatever it was, I guess 18 years ago, after my daughter was born, I would have gotten on the ball much earlier. And then I also saved probably a lot of money. It is super easy to create your estate plan in minutes with trust and will. And I'm telling you, if you have kids, if you're married, if you have family, that you have stuff to leave them, this is a really important thing to do. You can structure it so that you can maintaining control of your assets to easing the burden on your loved ones. This is what an estate plan can do. Trust and Will has simplified the process of creating and managing your will or trust online, from finding out what's right for your family to finalizing the documents with a notary. Each will or trust is crafted to be state-specific and customized to your specific need. It can be care wishes, which is really important, nominating guardians, final arrangements, power of attorney. This is also good to have your parents do if they haven't already. It's a good way to engage in a conversation with them about it. You can help your loved ones avoid lengthy and expensive legal proceedings like probate or having the state decide what happens to your assets. You can back your plan with support and peace of mind from estate planning experts. They will help you prepare and organize your documents all in one place for easy everyday reference or emergencies. Trust and Will secures your information with bank-level encryption. They also have a live customer support. It's available through phone, chat, and email. Trust and Will has earned an overall rating of excellent with thousands of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. Hundreds of thousands of families in counting have used their expertise for estate planning. Gain peace of mind today with Trust and Will. Get 10% off plus free shipping of your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/majority. Get 10% off free shipping at trustandwill.com/majority. Also, folks know that I'm a little bit technically challenged. One of the things I avoided putting off for a long time was setting up a merch store for the Majority Report. That was a big mistake. Had I understood how easy it was with Shopify, we would have done it a lot easier. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. It can be from the launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage, all the way to did we just hit 1 million orders stage. That has not happened yet with the Majority Report Shopify store, but it could. And if it did, that's the beauty of Shopify. Shopify will scale with you. And if you sell offline or anywhere else online, Shopify can help you. They have an all-in-one e-commerce platform. They have a in-person point of sale system. So you can integrate your offline and online sales. It works with all of the, major social media platforms. Shopify also has the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, which is your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, millions of other entrepreneurs in every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. That's one of the best things about Shopify. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to have a massive merch store, but you can start with Shopify and then you never grow out of it, no matter how big you become. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/majority, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/majority now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. All right, quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Ryan Grimm. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma off today. Joining us, the co-host of Counterpoints, the Washington bureau chief of the Intercept, and now just about to be a 2 times over author. His latest. Wow, look at that. We even have a graphic. The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. And that's coming out, what, in like a month?
Yeah, end of November, early December. But you can pre-order it now, Sam.
Oh, well, I mean, of course, I already have. But you're
want
talking
it
to our
if you
audience.
want it right on your doorstep the day it comes out.
I want to get into some of the stuff in the book because I think a lot of it has to do with what we're going through now from what you have told me. But first, you know, the U.S. just hit some, I guess, some targets or some bases in Syria that are supposedly either used by Iranian or Iranian-backed forces. This seems to be part of the strategy to contain the conflict.
Yes, more bombing to contain.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's, I mean, honestly, like, I think that's, it feels like Biden is operating like some old guy 50 years ago told Biden like one line, like, you know, always meet, you know, everything with the overwhelming strength or something. And that's been his watchword, and that's it. Because it's absolutely, I think, just bizarre at this point, the way that he is dealing with Israel. I mean, and it is, we're hearing these reports that U.S. Military are just sort of aghast at the complete lack of sort of like stage 2 of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The IDF, it appears, is raring to go, but Netanyahu seems to be the one who's holding back because he realizes like this is going to be a crap show. And the United States, it's unclear to me like what role the United States is playing here other than just sending over military equipment.
The best case reporting I've seen on what Biden is doing behind the scenes is allegedly trying to slow down the ground invasion, and thinks that by then giving carte blanche to this rampage, this like, you know, just absolute catastrophic barrage that then he'll like earn some credibility to be able to slow down this ground invasion. But to me, the 2 huge problems with that: one, the U.S. doesn't need to win credibility with Israel. Like, we finance and arm them. They have said publicly, we finance and arm them. What do you want us to do? Say no? Like, we do what
this was what the Israeli defense minister said
like,
in regards to why they allowed for some humanitarian aid. Yeah.
Right. So it's not like we don't need to cozy up to them in order to get them to do what we want them to do. But secondly, this bombing campaign is not a sideshow. You know, we're talking thousands of dead. We're talking about what, 1.4 million and growing displaced internally, with nowhere to go, basically. Right. With people running out of food, water for a couple hours a day at the best, no healthcare system, etc. So like, if you're facilitating that in order to stave off some bigger crisis, then I think you're missing the point, because you've produced the crisis.
And I mean, that's I guess the point that, I mean, I understand the idea of building credibility with a country that is supposedly not your ally. Right. But what more credibility do you know, it seems to me you're losing any type of like credibility as to leverage if you're sending over all these vehicles. It's one thing to provide, it seems to me, rhetorical support as a way of, but to send all of this like material seems to be sending sort of mixed messages. I don't know how you say pull back on this, but in the meantime, here are some up-armored vehicles for you to presumably go in and invade with.
And to continue to publicly say, civilian casualties, they're just part of war. They're going to continue to be civilian casualties. And then to say, B, and you know what? We can't even trust the numbers that are coming out of there.
Let's play this clip. I found this absolutely astonishing that that anyone could say this at that point, particularly anyone who, between the Israelis and the Americans, have the greatest ability to change the dynamic that Biden's complaining about here. Play this clip.
Sorry, which clip you want?
This is the Biden saying the questioning the number of deaths.
In the 18 days since Hamas killed 1,400 Israelis, the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says Israeli forces have killed over 6,000 Palestinians, including 2,700 children. You've previously asked Netanyahu to minimize civilian casualties. Do these numbers say to you that he is ignoring that message?
What they say to me is I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly careful. I think not we, the Israelis should be incredibly careful to be sure that they're focusing on going after the folks that are propagating this war against Israel. And it's against their interest when that doesn't happen. But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very quickly.
I mean, this is there. I mean, first off, and we should say that the health ministry released a list of over 6,500 who were killed in the Israeli bombing, and it is run by Hamas, and because Hamas is the government, provides government services there, everyone in the U.S. Government should be aware of that, because that is a function of, in many respects, what the United States did during the Bush administration. But if you think that you have no ability to assess how many civilians are killed, which is what Biden's saying, I mean, A, I don't know how you can go forward with a campaign saying we need to minimize civilian deaths. And B, there is a way to fix that. And that is to sort of, call for the UN to enter into this situation and essentially report back on what's going on. But there won't be, the US won't allow that either.
Right. And there's a contradiction even in his own answer. He says, I don't trust those numbers. And also civilian casualties, it's just a price of war. So by saying it's just the price of war, that's a signal that it's okay. It's going to happen. It's unfortunate. And as John Kirby said, we're going to continue to express concerns in the future when it happens, but it's going to keep happening. We're going to keep doing it. But then to kind of couple that with this pretense that you actually think maybe the numbers are smaller and that Hamas is lying about them. And by the way, I think for people who are just tuning into this, it's completely reasonable for them to wonder, is Hamas inflating these numbers? Why on earth would we trust Hamas?
Sure.
When they're but Biden is not just tuning into this. Like, the State Department has been trusting Hamas's Ministry of Health to give casualty numbers for years. The UN has been trusting them. The human rights organizations have been trusting them, because after every war and bombing campaign, they go in and they count, they do the actual counts, and they have largely matched up. And so they have grown over the years to say, okay, the Ministry of Health actually puts out reasonable information. If people still doubt that, so for this week's podcast for the Intercept, Deconstructed, I interviewed a Gazan who has lost 46 members of his family so far in this killing. When I spoke to him last week, it was 37. And so since then, the Ministry of Health list has come out. He provided me with the list of his family members. They're on this list with their ID numbers. He told me about this before the list came out. Like, you're already seeing on people, I think, fueled by Biden's skepticism. Biden's basically saying fake news. You're seeing people online saying, this is just a list. Anybody can make a PDF. But I can tell you that we've been able to cross-check not all 6,474, I think it is, names, but the ones that we have checked are on there. So this is a credible list. And if they're serious about civilian casualties and getting it right, they can say, all right, here are the numbers. Let's run this through the United Nations. What does the United Nations say? If the United Nations needs better access, they could ask for better access. But that's not what's going on. What's going on is creating the moral infrastructure for more slaughter so that people can then just deny that it happened.
Exactly. I mean, there's absolutely, I mean, according to Biden, there's absolutely no way we can know whether
Who can know?
Zero civilians have been killed or, 50,000. I mean, there's just no way for us to possibly know. We can't trust any number that we see. And it really is just, I just find it incredibly shocking. And I think, I've seen threads online where historians, have argued that we do this quite a bit for our client states. East Timor comes to mind. But
Sri Lanka, when they killed 50,000 of the what they call them, the tigers.
Yes,
fairly recently, and suffered no repercussions.
And but I guess from a political standpoint, the problem is that there's a lot more attention being paid on this, and it seems just absurd to make these arguments. And what has been striking, and I want to turn a little bit to what you've been writing about in your book, is we have now maybe close to a dozen, maybe a little more, in members of Congress who have attempted to push for a ceasefire, haven't signed on to some of these censure votes that the House and Senate's taken. Bernie Sanders has been a little bit disappointing in terms of, to say the least, in terms of calling for a ceasefire. I think he called for a humanitarian pause. I'm not sure what that means. There obviously is something about the word has gone out. We don't want you saying the word ceasefire.
Right. He said the bombs from both sides should stop, but he won't say ceasefire. And you're like, well, what's the difference?
Well, why is it? I mean, it's obvious. The difference is obviously either the Biden administration has said this is an unhelpful term for us, or what? Because, one of the things that was sort of a coincidence, although I don't know that it, I think this is what AIPAC had in mind. This AIPAC has been basically off the past two cycles, at least, been on a very explicit sort of discipline campaign for potential dissenters in a situation like this in Congress. Tell us about it in the context of your book.
Yeah, it was really kind of surreal to go back over it because I just did the recording for the audiobook over the last couple weeks, and I hadn't looked at the book for 6 months before that, and to see it in the context of this war was an odd experience. But you're right. It really goes back to February of 2019, and it goes back to the election of the squad in general, but in particular Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And February 2019 is when Democratic Majority for Israel, DMFI, launches. And it was launched, I report in the book, with basically the support of AIPAC. Like, if you gave money to DMFI, then that would count kind of toward your dues, your credit to AIPAC. Because, depending on what kind of tier you are at AIPAC, you get different perks. At the AIPAC conference, you might get a private meeting with Schumer, or you get to meet Kevin McCarthy with a handful of other people who gave $1 million plus, and at $5 million is a different perk. 500. So if you gave money to DMFI, that would count towards AIPAC, because AIPAC was still doing grassroots. They hadn't gotten into the super PAC game yet, so they let DMFI do that in the 2020 cycle. But then in the 2022 cycle, AIPAC got into the game as well. And I write about how J Street, going into that cycle, raised about $2 to $3 million, and they thought DMFI would spend about $10 million, somewhere between 5 and 10, and that would be enough to make them competitive. You don't need to be 1-to-1, because the argument that DMFI and AIPAC are making is so unpopular, they need to spend overwhelmingly. They actually came up with a rough calculation that AIPAC needs to outspend the progressive opponent by about 10-to-1.
Wow.
But if it's like 2 or 3 or 4-to-1, then it's a clean fight. It's a fair fight. And so then AIPAC comes in with more than $30 million, just throwing over the apple cart, like completely changed the calculation. Because now they could go in and I think they spent $7 million against Donna Edwards in Prince George's County because she had cast a vote when she first got to office in 2009 that was not completely supportive of whatever Israel was doing in Gaza with that particular war, if you remember that one. And they've had it in for Donna Edwards ever since. So when she tried to come back, they just nuked her, spent millions against Summer Lee. Nita Alam, if you remember her, she was the first Muslim elected in North Carolina. Her friends were the ones who were killed in that very famous Chapel Hill hate crime, where like 3 or 4 Muslim men were killed. And she decided to get into politics, and she was elected a Durham County commissioner. She ran for Congress. They spent like $6 million to beat her. And they only beat her by a few points. So these are the kind of races that these candidates win, like Donna Edwards wins without this intervention. And then all these other candidates around the country see this happening. And the consultants, and I talked to a bunch of consultants who had these meetings. Oh, DMFI, AIPAC are looking at this race. What do we do? And they would ask, John Fetterman, for instance, the campaign went to DMFI and said, what do we do? How do we get you not to nuke us? We don't expect that you're going to support us, but Connor Lamb is out here pleading for super PAC support. How do we make sure that he doesn't get it? And they allowed DMFI, and Mark Mellman has said this on the record, to basically edit their Israel-Palestine platform. And they got it to a place where DMFI was like, okay, you're good. And they left Connor Lamb twisting in the wind. And Fetterman wins. This happened in lots of other races. And so that's the context for this debate that we're having now. It was really interesting to see Greg Kassar and Max Frost both signed on to the Ceasefire Now resolution pushed by, introduced by Bush and Rashida Tlaib. And both of them were subject to intense pressure from DMFI and AIPAC. Both of them changed their kind of Israel-Palestine positions to not get nuked by AIPAC and DMFI. And then once in Congress, with grassroots mobilization, their districts came back and supported the Ceasefire Now resolution. So kind of a loss for AIPAC and DMFI there. Not a complete loss, but a loss.
And what what has DMFI or AIPAC said about Kassar and Frost?
They haven't said anything publicly, and they both voted, for that resolution that justifiably condemned Hamas, supported Israel, but said nothing about Palestinian civilians. That's the one that I think 9 Democrats voted against because it didn't mention Palestinian lives. So they're not all the way there, because they're cross-pressured intensely. But you wonder, like, are they going to whip up a primary challenge? And that's what, and everybody's wondering that. Like, now for Fetterman, the question is not, he's so popular, he's not going to get a primary challenge, but as a swing state, are they going to put $20 million behind a Republican, what next time he runs? So, but it's in the back of, it's the sheer amount of money is just in the back of everybody's mind, to the point where you don't have to spend it in most districts.
What do you think explains Bernie Sanders' hesitancy to say the word ceasefire on this?
So my sense from people in his orbit is that he is intoxicated, wouldn't be the right word. He has never before had the ear of the president of the United States throughout his career, including Obama and so on. Biden, he has Biden's ear. But he and Biden were like lockstep on a lot of domestic policy throughout 2021. He has further domestic policy goals that he wants to push. And I think he's just not willing to, break from Biden and risk that. Now, the problem there, I think, and he might not know this, everybody has Biden's ear. Like if you're in the House or Senate, even in the House, you want to call Biden, Biden will take your call. That's just kind of the kind of politician that he is. And separately, whatever domestic agenda Bernie has for the rest of 2023 and 2024 is not going anywhere. It's not like Speaker Mike Johnson is going to allow anything that Bernie likes to go through. But that's the best read that I've been able to get. But it's been, there's been a lot of disappointment from his supporters.
300 former staffers, was it?
Yeah. More than 300, probably closer to 400 by now, probably, because names keep getting added to it.
And theoretically, his calculation is my coming out and supporting a ceasefire is not going to do anything anyways.
Right.
And
that's how you could tell yourself that. Yeah. And it might be true.
It might be true, but it also might provide oxygen and sort of some type of cover for particularly people in the House, maybe other senators, unlikely other senators, but certainly people in the House to come out and stake out this position. If a senator is doing it, it becomes easier in some ways for a congressperson does. And he doesn't have to, a House person, he doesn't have to worry about AIPAC coming after him. And I don't think he cares about that. I mean, I don't think he cares about that at all. It seems to me that he's doing like a Biden credibility junket in the same way that Biden supposedly is with Israel. But, there's other ways, it seems to me, that Bernie Sanders could be helpful to Joe Biden. There's an election coming up. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I also think it's a miscalculation that Biden would care if Bernie introduced a ceasefire resolution.
At the very least, it is more of a story that he's not.
Right.
Because he has maintained this type of position and, and this role, if you will, for decades in one form or another. And the idea that he's not doing it is that much more of a statement than if he was doing it, frankly.
Right. If he did it, Joe Biden would be like, well, that's Bernie.
Exactly.
It's not like you wouldn't talk to Bernie anymore. It's quite something to see. It's
incredibly disappointing, and particularly in the context of like what's happening. It's it's shocking in many ways. Let's talk a little bit about the Mike Johnson. What is the take? First off, I think it doesn't take long to read into Mike Johnson being some people will say a Christo-fascist, some will say Christian nationalist, some will say a theocrat. I don't think from an academic perspective any of those things are wrong. Frankly.
But we do know that the founders
let's play this clip of Mike Johnson when this was his acceptance speech, right? Is that what it was, Bradley?
Yeah.
Play this clip of Mike Johnson. It's
not even a deep cut. Like this is
no, this is from like 4 days ago.
Yes.
All my colleagues here, what I told the Republicans in that room last night. I don't believe there are any coincidences in a matter like this. I believe that Scripture, the Bible, is very clear that God is the one that raises up those in authority. He raised up each of you, all of us. And I believe that God has ordained and allowed each one of us to be brought here for this specific moment in this time. This is my belief. I believe that each one of us has a huge responsibility today to use the gifts that God has.
If you were a coronated king, I don't know, 800 years ago, this is not terribly different from what you would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can look at his speeches throughout the years. He's very, dominionist or, whatever the different words are for it, deeply into that world, just as deep as you could possibly get. And more keeps coming out. The question to me is, does the public know who the new speaker is? Do they care? But the Republicans have been good, and we talked about this on the on counterpoints this week. Republicans have been pretty good about shutting up about abortion and trying to muffle their extreme social conservative wing,
regardless of
and kind of allowing the Supreme Court to do the dirty work.
Yes.
The memo has gone out, and the anti-abortion groups are they're not getting arrested, demanding they a 0-week abortion ban. And so this is kind of this undermines that, because you scratch the surface of the House Republican Party, and this is what you find. Like, this is he very much represents that House conference and a huge wing of that party, and so he just bubbled up through this process.
Well, I want to get more into that process, but I want to speak to this point, because this guy has said some really incredible things.
Yeah.
First off, just that clip we just played, he's basically saying we're not here because we were voted by the people. We're here by God's will. And it's one thing to say, like, I've been blessed by God, and we couldn't have won this championship if it wasn't for God steering us. But you're not appointed by God. God does not raise you up. You have to be elected. You serve not at the pleasure of God. You serve at the pleasure of the people.
Right, but there's a whole tendency. Right, they don't believe that.
They don't believe that.
Right.
But this whole thing where he is like pulling back on stuff, because of to be quiet about abortion. He was on Fox last night with Sean Hannity, and do we have him saying anything about the about abortion on there? He basically says, play this clip of him saying this number 8. This is about what he believes.
Okay. 8.
Clip number 8. No sound.
you hard. Specifically, I'll give you 2 big issues. One on the issue, you once worked for the Alliance Defense Fund, a Christian advocacy group, and comments you had made both in writing and advocacy for this group about homosexuality, calling it sinful, destructive, and not supporting gay marriage, quote, no clear right to sodomy in the Constitution. You have been getting hammered on this. And I want to ask you about it. I want to know exactly, where you stand. Some of these comments were 15 years ago.
I don't even remember some of them. I was a litigator that was called upon to defend the state marriage amendments. If you remember back in the early 2000s, I think it was over 35 states, somewhere in that number, that the people went to the ballot in their respective states and they amended their state constitutions to say marriage is one man, one woman. Well, I was a religious liberty defense lawyer and I was called to go in and defend those cases in the courts. Let me state this very clearly, and there's been questions about this. Let me say where I am. Anybody that knows me will tell you this is true. I am a rule of law guy. I made a career defending the rule of law. I respect the rule of law. When the Supreme Court issued the Obergefell opinion, that became the law of the land, okay? I respect the rule of law, but I also genuinely love all people, regardless of their lifestyle choices. This is not about the people themselves. I am a Bible-believing Christian. Someone asked me today in the media, they said, it's curious, people are curious, what does Mike Johnson think about any issue under the sun? I said, well, go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview. That's what I believe. And so
that's
I make
your
no
personal
problem.
worldview.
My personal worldview. But here's
Now, what's interesting is Hannity, who is without a doubt on the God Squad. I mean, he has been a believer in end times for decades, I think. Really, they are working overtime to try and sell this guy to the American public as not being a theocrat. And this whole plan of like outsourcing this stuff to the Supreme Court when necessary and just waiting. But this is this is about maintaining the House in 2024.
but I don't think it's going to help them. Their biggest handicap is abortion, because in every race where abortion rights were plausibly on the ballot, whether it was a state legislative, a contested state legislature, a governor, or an actual ballot measure, turnout absolutely surged among young people and among women, and it benefited Democrats. And for them to be raising the salience of that issue is probably going to hurt them. On the other hand, it's not as if abortion rights necessarily need their salience raised. It's one of those issues that, like, even if the media is not talking about it, people understand it. Like, so it's one of those unusual issues in that sense that
it doesn't necessarily, but I
doesn't
do
go
think,
away just because the media stops talking.
But I'll tell you something. I'll tell you where it's going to make a difference. It's going to make a difference with New York Congress people and California Congress people, because when some challenger, I don't know, if Josh Riley running against Mark Molinaro or whoever's going to run against Lawler, they come in and they're going to say, like, you may have this opinion, but you're Speaker of the House. You vote for that guy for Speaker of the House, and you voted for him. Yeah. And that guy is believes this. Let's play this clip. And we should just say, he's a rule of law guy, he says on Hannity, right? And some of those comments were so long ago, he can't even remember. This is one from 2016. I know it's a long time ago. That's almost 7 years ago, but I'm pretty sure this was a settled matter 7 years ago, and he still had an issue with it. This is number 7. Clip number 7. Sound.
Our generation has been convinced that there's a separation of church and state, right? We heard that term all the time. And most people think that that's part of the Constitution, but it's not. Remember, I'm a constitutional lawyer.
All right, we need to go back.
Because a democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner, okay? It's not just majority rule. It's a constitutional republic. And the founders set that up because they followed the biblical admonition on what a civil society is supposed to look like. We don't...
We can do that other one again here.
Yeah, please do the other one.
Go down to the other one.
What's happened, Alex, over the last 60, 70 years is that our generation has been convinced that there's a separation of church and state, right? We heard that term all the time. And most people think that that's part of the Constitution, but it's not. Remember, I'm a constitutional lawyer. What's happened?
He's a constitutional lawyer. Yeah. Church and state, not part of the Constitution. But just moments ago, we heard him on Hannity saying Obergefell is settled law. That's the Supreme Court. This guy there's one of those two things he doesn't believe.
Well, also Roe was settled law. So, like, their claim that something is settled law doesn't mean anything. That just means it's settled law until they unsettle it again. So I think you're right that in these key seats in California and New York in particular, it's going to be tougher, because, like, you look at Kevin McCarthy and you're like, that guy didn't care about anything. Like, it's harder to hit people with Kevin McCarthy because he's just like a transactional, like, corporate politician. This guy just exudes what he is. It just pours out of him, and you can just see his speech from 4 days ago and know that he has not changed a single opinion that he had, 20 years ago. It is delightful, and I do want to take a moment to celebrate the fact that working on those, marriage equality ballot measures, working, kind of being on the side he was on, is now something you have to apologize for and explain away. Like, that's nice. That's good, because you and I remember being in the vast minority at the time. Like, he's right that majorities went out and passed those amendments and those referendums.
It's arguably how George W. Bush got elected for the first time, frankly, with a majority. First time he won, in 2004. And I think in the run up to that election, George W. Bush was on national television, 7 p.m. Talk from the Oval Office, promoting a constitutional amendment, for U.S. constitutional amendment to basically declare gay people second-class citizens.
I also think, by the way, that Bush and Rove politicizing that the way that they did forced Democrats to take a position that they didn't want to take. Like, Democrats would have been happy to say, marriage is between one man and one woman, but I support civil unions because everybody should be able to visit their loved one in the hospital. They would have been happy to just do that forever. But Rove kind of forced the issue on them. And it took 5-6 years after that. But if you force Democrats to take a position, yes or no, on a clear civil rights question like that, eventually they're going to be forced into the yes side. And
they find out then, oh, this is incredibly
everybody else agrees too. Yeah.
You could say the same thing. Yeah. That Democrats did the same thing with abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 2004,
absolutely.
There was, Hillary Clinton was a big proponent of sort of some type of middle ground on abortion, as if that would in any way satiate the right or protect the right to an abortion in this country. What do you think that Johnson's going to do? Impeachment's going to go forward. They're going to sort of, I don't know what more they can do on the Hunter Biden front, but that's what it's going to be. What do you think he's going to do in terms of the budget? What do you think he's going to do in terms of, I don't know. Are there any other, they're not going to have any other legislative agenda, are they? Or are they, is he going to force these 18 sort of Biden district Republicans to take votes they don't want to take, or what?
They've got 2 weeks, no, 3 weeks, 21 days or whatever, to fund the government. November 17th. They're also facing this $100 billion request for both Ukraine and Israel. And interestingly, you had some like conspiracy people out there being like, I think Putin, did this Hamas attack. And it's like, no, but like the Hamas attack is going to grease Ukraine's $60 billion funding. So even if he did, it was a blunder on his part, because you can see Republican support eroding for sending money to Ukraine, but if you couple it with support for the Israeli war effort, it's gonna go through. And Mike Johnson, in that one clip you played from that was the 2000s or 2010s or whatever, he's sitting there preaching in front of an Israeli flag.
Oh yeah, he's a big part of the Christian Zionist movement, I would imagine.
Right, and so he's going to do everything he can. McConnell's going to do everything he can to get McConnell's one of the biggest Ukraine war money supporters in Congress, and so he's lost a couple steps for sure, but he's still quicker than Mike Johnson, I'm sure, when it comes. This is a guy who just got elected a couple of terms ago.
What do you make of Mike Johnson's supposed inability to raise money? Is that going to be sort of a corrected once he becomes Speaker of the House? I imagine he's going to be able to raise a lot more, but can you really go from, what do you need to have developed these relationships over years and years and shown that you can deliver before you get that money, or no? What happens?
It helps. You would think that just self-interest would be enough for the big money to just flow, that Republicans shouldn't even have to ask for it. But that's not how super rich people are. You actually have to shake them down and wine and dine them, and make the calls and do the dinners, and have the fundraisers, and then they give you the money. McCarthy apparently, and it's hard, I don't see it, but he was an incredible fundraiser. He was a charmer. Somehow he knows how to turn it on in private in ways he can't in public. And one of the reasons I think that Democrats were so unwilling to help him, people were like, why won't they just do this? He's fine. What are you throwing? They were so glad to see the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars that he was going to raise, not be raised, and you have to send now Mike Johnson to this fundraiser, who, culturally probably just doesn't connect as well with some of these, super rich Republicans. Clearly doesn't have much of an appetite for it. just might not be good on the phone with these guys. Like that does matter. They've had to cancel a bunch of fundraisers because there was, McCarthy was going to be the headliner. That's money that's not coming in for them. So it's an actual potential problem. Republicans are always going to be well financed, but it's kind of a funny own goal in that sense.
Did Matt Gaetz win? I mean, what is Matt Gaetz's game? Because it seems to me that Matt Gaetz is not really long for the House. Like, I mean, I don't know. You'd have a better sense of this, having done all this reporting on the House, but he doesn't. I mean, his preferred candidate may have ended up there, but that's a function of, like, there's a lot of religious zealots within the Republican Party. I mean, that is literally their base. I mean, the fundamentalists. So it's not terribly surprising that person ended up, but Matt Gaetz himself, is he going to be able to do anything in the future?
If you believe Kevin McCarthy, and there's plenty of reason to believe him on this point, that, a significant amount of this was driven by the ethics investigation that Gaetz, if you want to put it in the best light, felt like McCarthy was waging against him in an unfair and retaliatory kind of way. So he's going to take out McCarthy. In a different light, you would say he's got this investigation underway and wanted a political way out of it, and tried to get it stopped, failed, and so then took McCarthy out. And now we'll say that, well, this is retaliation. So if you believe all that, then how this plays out for him depends on how things play out after, if and when the investigation comes out and what happens there. Secondly, it also depends how what they do from here. Like, these are, I think it's fair to call them some, procedural maneuvering wins on the inside. Like, they've got a more right-wing person in the speakership than they had beforehand. But that's just putting people on the field. They now have to execute on that. If they lose the government shutdown fight, or if they lose, they could still, they have to put points on the board here. It's not just getting out there. So it could be. We'll see. Did you see, by the way, that he outed? Basically,
let's play this clip. And before we do, I want to play this Matt Gaetz clip where he outs apparently a fellow member of his
Ways
caucus.
and Means chairman, one of the most powerful guys in the.
I mean,
House.
It does feel like he is intent on burning the whole place down. But does the election of Mike Johnson signify that the Republican caucus, it used to be they would pander to these right-wing people and sort of leverage their electoral base? Does this signify that this is no longer about like a small base, but rather this is the mainstream of the party?
Yes, there. At the same time, there's the kind of Bannon and Gaetz wing of the party, which has millions of people who are listening to his podcast and responding and getting into activism. And it was interesting. They sort of got Bernie broed. Did you notice this? Because they played. They were hammering the phones for Jim Jordan, and somebody called a member of Congress's wife and was like totally vicious, left to like brutal voicemail. They played that and they're like, look at all these crazy Bannon Gaetz people who are just like. So they turned that energy kind of against them. And I listened to Bannon's podcast a lot to see what they're up to. And they did reflect on that. They're like, guys, let's just try to be a little more polite. Like, it's okay to be polite. You're not selling out the movement by, not sounding like that when you're calling people. But there's that whole wing. That wing is in conflict with the kind of institutional conservative movement. Which Mike Johnson is more a part of. So, but there's like a tenuous alliance between, he's only a recent part of it. He's not like Mike Pence, who's been in it for 30 years or whatever. And so there's still that conflict, but the Chamber of Commerce Republicans, have been routed. It's an activist party. Like, the activists have really done a good job of like taking over huge parts of it.
We should say, though, Mike Johnson's very amenable to, I think, Chamber of Commerce
For sure.
in his own way.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
that's why I think they were able to stitch this together, is that he's part of the God Squad, but he's also, free market fundamentalist as well. But here is Matt Gaetz responding to Jason Smith. Like you say, I think he's the youngest Ways and Means chair ever.
Sounds right. Yeah.
On Gaetz's radio show. And this is, you'll tell us the implications of this afterwards.
Kind of stuff. It's simply not true. I know the dynamics of the 20 people that voted against Steve Scalise, the 25 that voted against Tom Emmer, and the 22 that voted against Jim Jordan. They were not the same people. They were all different people, and it was for different reasons. So Matt Gaetz is a foolish liar.
A foolish liar. We are back live. Jason Smith says, if my lips are moving, I'm lying. Well, you know what? If Jason Smith is breathing, he is living a lie. There might not be another member of Congress who lives a lie every day more than Jason Smith. And Jason Smith knows exactly what I'm talking about. And by the way, so does almost every member of the House Republican caucus. So there's a good deal of projection in Jason Smith calling me a liar when it's Jason Smith who literally has to live a lie. And I honestly pity him for that because, it wouldn't be something that I wouldn't live that way. I'll just put it that way. So Jason, I would check yourself before you come at me with any accusations of being dishonest about what I say when you're dishonest about how you live and what you do. He says the blood is on my hands for 22 days of not, I guess, sending money to Ukraine or whatever else they wanted to do.
Interesting times we live in. Sure.
I mean, I think there have certainly been times where I think it's appropriate to out a lawmaker if they are doing stuff that is sort of like extraordinarily hypocritical and vicious relative to the way their life. And to be honest, I don't know much about Jason Smith at all. I am, outside of just the first 3 words of his, first line or 2 of his bio. What are the implications of this? You heard anybody talk about this on the Hill, or is this basically I would imagine I remember Dreyer, was it named Dreyer from California, who was maybe the whip. And this was in the aughts again in 2004, and hearing stories of like half of the caucus wouldn't even shake his hand because he was gay. Right. It really, I don't, they're not going to drum him out of but it's really just sort of like teeing up maybe an opponent of Smith in terms of a primary, or how do you think people are going to respond to that in the Republican caucus?
I mean, it's Gaetz is, it goes to Gaetz's reputation as just a live wire and a free actor, like that. There's no predicting what he's going to do, and that's some of his power. I think not. Obviously he can't out the entire conference, but anybody else who's going to criticize him is then going to wonder, like, how's this going to go for me? It's a Trumpian thing in that sense. Like so many candidates in 2016 saw themselves just reduced to size by Trump's like belittling of them, and in the future people were much less willing to kind of tangle with him because he's playing a game that they can't win. Like you saw it when Ron DeSantis or even when like Marco Rubio tried to like come at him. They're just not willing to go the distance that Trump is willing to go. Like DeSantis like says one small thing about him and Trump like posts a picture of him and calls him a pedophile. It's like boom, like you can't compete with that. unless you really are willing to compete with that. But so many Republicans want to be Trump without the baggage. And so in order to be Trump without the baggage, you can't call every single one of your opponents gay or a pedophile, which then hamstrings you if they're willing to call you that.
Yeah,
And
you
so,
can't.
yeah.
That's not a. You can't be defensive in any way. You have to be 100% offense all the time.
Right, but then you're not Trump without the baggage. Then you're just another
Right,
Trump,
and
nobody's the real Trump.
Matt Gaetz might be able to. There may have been some sort of procedural things, but I wonder in terms of actual material gains what he's going to get. I mean,
Right,
the
we'll
easy
see.
part is they don't want much.
Right.
In terms of like material gains, there's not a big ask there. It really is just like who's going to have power, who's going to have the perks. There's no policy agenda.
That's a good point in the sense that what they really want is to be seen fighting. And what their supporters want is to watch them fight. Whether they win, and Gaetz has said this explicitly, like whether we win or not is not the point. Like people want us to fight. And you see that on the left too.
Oh, without a doubt.
The point is not winning.
Well, I mean, the difference is I totally think that, yes, people want to see their politicians fighting on their behalf. But the gains for a Republican, there's no policy prescription that is their gains are measured against. So much of it is cultural and whether, and really, frankly, identitarian, right? Like that's the irony of all of this is that when Democrats want Democrats to fight, it is in the service of delivering some type of material benefit. And even if you're going to lose, there is an argument that sometimes you can lose well. There's times you can lose poorly as well, obviously. But sometimes you can lose well and
you win the next time.
And win the next time, particularly against Republicans, right? Because the way you do this with a two-party system is you try and highlight the differences in that respect in pursuit of these policy goals. With the Republicans, they just want to highlight the differences, but it's not in pursuit of necessarily policy goals as much as it is sort of like more cultural domination.
Yeah. And with Democrats, you can also do it in primaries. Like you can show what the difference is and then run in primaries. To say a word of praise for Gaetz, by the way, when it comes to let's say Yemen or troops in Syria or military adventurism throughout Africa, he's been one of the best kind of allies of the kind of movement to try to restrain American militarism abroad. Now, when they tried to get him to work with them on some Central and South American stuff, and he just said no. Like that's when they say America first, they include Central and South America,
right?
Like Monroe, strength and doctrine. But he's not a lefty, so he's not going to agree with you on everything. But there's a lot that he is actually really useful for. So in some ways, it's there have been a lot of folks on the left who want him to be able to be more credible because he's the only one who's willing to put forward a resolution on Niger.
I think the idea of him bringing along other Republicans for something like anything like that is sailed.
It's sailed, right?
He's done. He may be able to benefit himself, but he's not going to be. He's not.
So that's been a casualty of this.
Yeah, he's not capable of bringing any type of coalition along. He's one vote essentially, and it remains to be seen if Mike Johnson will allow one vote to vacate his speakership as McCarthy did. I mean, that was, we'll see if he's going to institute that. Ryan Grimm, always a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Good time.
Folks can find your book where?
All over.
To pre-order.
Yeah. I mean, it's on Amazon, but if you hate Amazon, you can find it all over the place. It's published by Holt or Macmillan. So
wait, what happened to your publishing outfit?
Oh, Amazon gobbled that entire thing up.
They did?
Yeah, Amazon makes being a small business basically impossible in publishing. Yeah, it's like because they take everything. They own Kindle, they own Audible, they own the people that produce the books, like that actually print them. They own the like audiobook production side, and so they figure out exactly what you're going to make and take like 99% of it throughout the process.
Nice.
So we're still doing it like for books that nobody else will publish that we think really deserve an audience, but but Amazon has made sure that nobody can like you can't like make a sustainable nonprofit out of it.
That sounds like a good antitrust issue.
Yeah, it really is. It's like they have completely controlled it and they just soak up all of it. Yeah. So, but yeah, you can buy the book on Amazon.
There you go. There you go. That way,
or wherever you get a book. Yeah.
The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. Ryan Grimm, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yep, you got it.
All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half of the program. We will take your phone calls. 646-257-3920 is the number. Just want to remind you, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show, free of commercials, but you also get the fun half. And in the fun half, you can IM the program. You can IM the program. And once you become a member, you log in on the app. The app is free to everybody at majorityapp.com. Then you log in when you're a member and you can IM the program. Of course, you can call the program at 646-257-3920. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority to get 10% off. Bradley, what happened on ESVN this week?
Yeah, we did our picks against the spread yesterday for upcoming week 8 NFL action. Emma and I are both doing extremely poorly, so hoping for some success this coming week to get back into it. And check out youtube.com/ESVN show for our Monday show as well, and any clips if you want to catch up.
Matt.
Yeah, Derek Davison was on Left Reckoning on Wednesday this week talking about the situation in Gaza. This weekend, we have journalist Lily Lynch talking about Ukraine. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right, we'll be right back. 646-257-3920 is the number. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Can you bring back DJ Danner?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males...
Psych. Fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
And back.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Let's read some IMs. Not sure if this fits the show, but I emailed you guys contact for a lawyer trying to help Palestinian Americans stuck in Gaza last night, says the Worcester Ice Cats. State Department has been giving different answers privately and publicly about why American citizens cannot leave Gaza. There's a new Worcester ice hockey team now, the Railers. I don't know what happened to the Ice Cats. Rural lefty regarding Ryan Grimm mentioning first-time Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost of Florida supporting a ceasefire. Frost was the first in Congress to publicly support Maine Democratic Congressman Jared Golden after he announced yesterday his support for an assault rifle ban. Frost has an Act Blue fundraising page for Golden, and gun reform groups welcome any help they can get. So please support these Democratic politicians who previously drunk the Kool-Aid, either to get elected or because they were